Hi there, my name is Max and I'm a tutor here at Britsent, and today I'll be giving you an academic writing video on how to paraphrase and use other authors' work in your writing. So when we're writing academic essays, it's really important to use information from other sources, from other books and articles and authors, but it's really important that we don't plagiarize this. So the main takeaway from this video is to never ever plagiarize another author's work in your writing. So how do we take other work and put it into our own words? So the main way we do this is through paraphrasing. So in this video, I'll be showing you 3 simple tips which will help you to do this efficiently and to do it in a way which makes your writing sound neat and presentable. So number 1 is to change the order of the clauses. Now a clause is a part of a sentence which contains a verb and a subject. And often these can be switched so that we can say the same thing but in a different way. So let's look at a few examples. My brother is a terrible cook. Studying English isn't always easy. So as you'll see in the video, what's highlighted in green will be the subjects and in pink will be the verb. So if we go on to look at these next examples, you'll see how these switch, which allows us to put something into our own words. So it's important to remember that many sentences will have more than one clause. That's how we are able to switch them so that we can put it into our own writing. So let's look at a few examples and we'll see how these word orders switch. Because so many languages are spoken all over the world, people sometimes have difficulties understanding each other. Now let's switch the order. People sometimes have difficulties understanding each other because so many languages are spoken all over the world. Let's look at a second example. Factories contribute to pollution. Cars also release carbon dioxide. And again, let's switch the order. Cars release carbon dioxide and factories also contribute to pollution. Now, the second tip I've got for you today is to find synonyms, and this is a really important one, and one that the more time you put into it, the easier it will become to paraphrase. Now, to find synonyms, you can use a paper thesaurus, or there's many online ones as well. A personal favorite is Power Thesaurus, but every time you find a synonym to switch with a word from the original text, it's very important to check the definitions of both because they will vary slightly even if they are synonyms. So let's have a look at a few examples of how we can use synonyms in paraphrasing. People sometimes have difficulties understanding each other because so many different languages are spoken all over the world. So can you think of any synonyms or alternative words that we could switch in the sentence? If you like, pause the video, take a moment to write them down, and then afterwards you can try putting this sentence into your own words. So as mentioned, there's many ways we can do this, but here is my example. Humans occasionally struggle to comprehend one another since such a huge number of different languages are spoken across the globe. So in the video, the words that are highlighted are the ones that I've changed and found other synonyms for. So the third tip I've got for you today is to change the word structure. So what I mean by this is if you have a verb, you'll often be able to switch that into a subject or sometimes even an adjective. And what this will allow you to do is to say the same thing as the original text, but to put it in a new form and thus in your own way. Let's have a look at a few examples together. The course content confused the student. The course content was confusing for the student. The government is interested in this initiative. The initiative attracted the government's attention. Okay, so now let's try it with our previous sentence about language. Humans occasionally struggle to comprehend one another since there is such a huge number of different languages spoken across the globe. It is occasionally a struggle for humans to comprehend one another since such a huge number of languages are spoken across the globe. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at our original sentence and we're going to see how much it can change using those 3 techniques I mentioned for you. So first of all, let's hear the original sentence. Because so many languages are spoken over the world, people sometimes have difficulties understanding each other. Now, with all three techniques, let's hear how this has changed. It is occasionally a struggle for humans to comprehend one another since such a huge number of languages are spoken across the globe. So you can see that by using synonyms, by restructuring some of the verbs, and by changing the word order of the clauses, we've been able to create something which sounds more like our own words rather than a plagiarized version of the original. So the last point to remember is that whilst this is an incredibly useful process for taking information from other authors and putting it into your own words, it is important to remember that your essay should be made up mostly of information and your own ideas. So you should use this sparingly, and when you do use it, make sure that you're using it properly. And if you are going to take something and put it directly into your essay, it's always important for you to reference it, and this will avoid you being flagged up for plagiarism. So that's all from me today, but try these 3 tips and in no time you'll be paraphrasing like a pro. However, if you do have any questions or you still feel that there's some work you need doing and some support, feel free to contact Britsent and one of our editors will be in contact with you. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram for any new information coming out from us. Enjoy your day.